Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 854 for the 16th of February 2025. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia, where at the moment around the Skeptic Zone studios, for some reason, there are flocks of cockatoos. Looking out the window into the tree, they're flying by, screeching and making all sorts of noises. I don't know. Are they cockatoos? Maybe they're UAPs. I haven't actually seen them. I've heard them. Maybe they're the promised UAP invasion that people like Ross Coulthard have been trumpeting for some time. In fact, he said all hell would break loose in very early 2025. Maybe that's it. Maybe those cockatoos are really UAPs from another dimension. Coming up on this week's show, in this dimension, what if? There goes one now. What if psychics were really psychic? What if water diviners could really find water? This week we pose a little thought experiment. We wonder what the world would be really like if these claims were actually true, if the claims that skeptics have investigated for decades and decades and decades turned out to be, in fact, real. A little thought experiment, what if, coming up at the top of the show. Following that, oh yes, Part 3 of Psychic Penny's Adventures in Space. This is our ongoing radio soap opera drama. And this week, the chapter was written by Chat GPT. Every week we get a different AI engine to write the next gripping installment. What happens this week? Find out when we zoom off to space with Psychic Penny and her friends. Following that, sort of in a different space, in VR, virtual reality, I meet up with Lara Benham, Adrienne Hill and Ross Blocher, and we enjoy a little game of mini golf and chat about the upcoming cruise to the Bermuda Triangle with Skeptoid, to celebrate Skeptoid's 1000th episode. A bit of an experiment. I think it worked out quite well. When you meet in virtual reality, you can see each other, well, avatars, and carry on conversations. That's coming up a bit later on. Then we have Adrienne Hill back again with the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, written by Tim Mendham. Then to round off the show, the TROVE Archives looks at paranormal references in politics. Paranormal politics. It's all a guessing game. And I think that's pretty appropriate because here in Australia, the government is about to call, probably within the next week, a federal election. And I imagine after that happens, the psychics will be out in force to predict who the next Prime Minister will be. Now, just before we get into the show, our fearless reporter Kat McLeod up there in Edmonton recently appeared on Why Smart Women podcast. Oh yes, Kat, you're getting a little bit famous out there, and I've linked that episode in this week's show notes, and this is by Annie McCubbin, who spoke at the Australian Skeptics National Convention. Have a listen to Kat's story on the Why Smart Women podcast. Well, that's enough for me at the moment. Stay tuned at the end of the show for a few announcements. And it's time for me to run downstairs, have a cup of coffee. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Now, one of the things that Australian skeptics have been saying for many years is, well, it's sort of like a little mind experiment, a thought experiment. Give the psychics, the mystics, the water diviners, etc., the benefit of the doubt, and let's say it's true. Let's say their powers are real. then we'd have to ask ourselves, what would the world be like? What would our society be like? Human interaction, all sorts of things. The world as we know it would be radically transformed if psychic powers were real. Imagine a society where telepathy was commonplace, where the thoughts and emotions could be shared effortlessly. Misunderstandings would be rare, as intentions and true feelings would be transparent. Relationships would be profoundly altered, with deep intuitive connections forming the basis of human interaction. Whether that would be a good thing or a bad thing, we don't know. On the other hand, privacy would become a distant memory. The constant stream of thoughts and emotions could be overwhelming, which was a point brought up by Douglas Adams in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where a race of intellectual beings were thought so smug and superior by the rest of the galaxy that they were gifted the curse of telepathy and could hear each other's thoughts. Manipulation and mind control would become potent threats, requiring individuals to develop strong mental defenses. Telekinesis, the ability to move objects with the mind, would revolutionize technology. Manual labor would become obsolete, replaced by the power of thought. Construction, manufacturing, and even the medicine world would be transformed, with surgical procedures performed with unparalleled precision. However, the potential misuse is immense. Weapons could be controlled with the mind, and the balance of power could shift dramatically. Precognition, the ability to foresee the future, could save countless lives. And of course, this is something we looked at seriously in the Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project. What if it was true that people could see into the future and predict, asteroids colliding with the Earth or whatever? Accidents could be prevented, disasters averted, and medical breakthroughs accelerated. However, the knowledge of impending doom could be psychologically devastating. But then again, if you knew an event was happening in time, a disaster, and you could prevent it, then what are you preventing? Because the disaster never happened. It's a very interesting thought experiment. The existence of psychic powers would force us to confront fundamental questions about consciousness, free will, the nature of reality. It would challenge our understanding of the physical world and open up new frontiers of science exploration. The world would be more magical, yet potentially more dangerous. What would happen to sporting events if people could predict with near certainty the outcome of a football match, for example? Why bother turning up to the Super Bowl when you know who's going to win? And what would happen to the dice game at the end of the Skeptic Zone? The ethical implications of psychic powers would be profound. How would society regulate their use? Would they be considered a gift or a weapon? Who would have access to training and development? The answer to these questions would shape the very fabric of our civilization. The existence of psychic powers would be a double-edged sword. While it holds the promise of a more connected and harmonious world, it also presents significant challenges and dangers. The key would lie in harnessing these powers responsibly and ethically, ensuring they could be used for the benefit of humanity and not for the detriment. Now let's look at the flip side of this thought experiment. Let's assume that psychic powers, water divining, for seeing the future, all the rest of it, are a fiction or a delusion. They simply don't happen. What would the world be like? And the only way to answer that is look out the window. The world as we know it, through generations, through all of history, is no different to that which we would expect to see if psychic powers were non-existent, but some people in society were convinced they were. We would see people continuously failing properly controlled and overseen tests into their ability, as their ability is really an illusion in their mind, or a delusion, or a misconception. While skeptics keep an open mind and are always ready to look at new evidence for any proposed psychic power, if we look at the world around us, we realize that it is no different to if psychic powers did not exist at all. Well, there we are. Just a little thought experiment or two about psychics and psychic powers. I, for one, endeavour earnestly to keep an open mind if I'm investigating a psychic claim. But as I've said many times in various media interviews, of course, I've got my preconceptions. And after 25 years of doing this, I can't help but have preconceptions. And it's always interesting to face that. But to help us face our preconceptions, we have the scientific method, which does everything it can to ensure that our preconceptions do not interfere with the possible outcome or data received or gleaned from any testing. While my preconceptions tell me that in all likelihood psychic power does not exist, but yet I'm open-minded to the possibility that it does, the preconceptions of those we test, the psychics, the believers, is such that they are not open to the possibility that they might be wrong. They know they're right, and it is an irrelevance how they perform in a test. Continual failure only means that the skeptics must be doing something shonky or underhanded, or as I heard one psychic tell me once, that after failing a test, that the spirits made her fail the test to teach her a lesson. So the mental gymnastics of the believers in psychic power is truly remarkable.
I'm Mick West. In my podcast, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, I have extended conversations with people who have been involved in conspiracy culture. I do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's really interesting. These people have great stories about how they fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, what they did down there, and what it was that helped them out. Sometimes I also talk to people who investigate conspiracy theories, and they have equally fascinating stories from the other side. Secondly, I want to understand how best to prevent the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which is an increasing problem in a time when alternative media is exploding. The best way to do this is to communicate effectively with the people involved, and the best way to do that is with a nice long chat. So check it out, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, tftrh.com.
Welcome to part 3 of our space opera, The Adventures of Psychic Penny. Now each week we get a different AI engine to write each chapter, and this time it's the turn of Chat GPT. The cast. The narrator sets the scene and transitions, played by Richard Saunders. Psychic Penny, a fake psychic with a flair for the dramatic, played by Adrienne Hill. Agent Zorak, a skeptical Galactic Federation officer with a dry sense of humour, played by Kat McLeod. Commander Lyra, a no-nonsense Federation officer who's seen it all, played by Lara Benham. And Emperor Snazzleflurp, the goofy leader of the Galactic Federation, played by Maynard. Scene 1. Aboard the starship, mostly functional. Our heroes find themselves in yet another cosmic catastrophe, barreling towards a black hole with only moments to spare.
Oh, I foresaw this happening.
You foresaw it after we got caught in the gravity well.
Details.
Less arguing, more not dying. Zorak, fire thrusters.
Warning. Escape attempt unlikely. Oh,
Okay, cosmic spirits, grant us safe passage.
That actually worked.
Told you. My psychic energy is very real.
Or the backup thrusters just kicked in.
A mystery we may never solve.
With their ship miraculously intact, our heroes make their way to Centaurus, the home of the Galactic Federation's most unique ruler.
Entering Centaurus airspace, Emperor Snazzleflurp is expecting us.
I sense a great cosmic disturbance.
We're about to talk to Snazzleflurp. Of course there's a disturbance.
The throne room of Emperor Snazzleflurp, a place of both great power and deep confusion.
Ah, my most acceptable agents. You have returned. Aha!
Your cosmic eminence.
I give it 5 seconds before this gets weird.
Do you want to see a magic trick?
Emperor, please.
I have a space hamster in my pocket. Behold!
Okay, that was impressive.
Oh, can we just get our orders?
Yes, of course. A mission of utmost importance. I said importance.
Here we go.
The legendary celestial crystals have been rediscovered.
The fabled artifacts of unimaginable power?
Oh, very fancy paperweights. Who can say?
And let me guess, we have to retrieve them.
Exactly. You must travel to Nebulon 9, a planet so dangerous it has 4 warning labels. In color.
Oh, good. I was hoping for a near-death experience today.
Fear not. I shall guide us with my mystical foresight.
Wonderful! Also, minor detail. The crystals are cursed.
What?
Have fun.
And so, our heroes set a course for Nebulon 9, a mission fraught with peril, mystery, and possible doom.
Looks like the planet is already occupied.
By what?
Turn back or be destroyed.
Okay, now I foresee a problem.
To be continued. Well, there we are. That's part 3 of our ongoing adventure with poor old Psychic Penny and her friends. And next week's episode will be written by, I think, Gemini. I think that's a Google AI engine. And we'll see what happens next. Well, hello, this is Richard Saunders speaking to you from virtual reality. I'm with Skeptic Zone reporter Adrienne Hill. Hello, Adrienne.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm with the Secretary of Australian Skeptics, Lara Benham. Hello, Lara.
Hi.
And from various podcasts, and probably many more to come, Ross Blocher. Hi, Ross.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to
We're
be
all
here.
here meeting in the virtual world because we live all around the planet in the United States, in Australia and Canada, but we can all meet up and play golf. And people say, well, why do you waste your time playing games in virtual reality? But to me, it's just a wonderful opportunity to catch up with everybody from around the world as I take my shot.
People only say that if they haven't played Walkabout Mini Golf because it's great.
Yes.
Now, we don't get
It's amazing.
We don't get any kickbacks from this game. I'm not on the payroll of Mighty Coconut, the company who put it out. But for certain members of the skeptical community, it's a wonderful way to keep in touch as Adrienne takes her shot and misses. And,
Thanks.
I thought
That would have been pretty impressive if you had gotten it.
It was actually a great shot.
It was.
It's a great shot. That is mean.
and Russ.
And Richard does do a lot of that in
What's that?
virtual golf.
What?
It gives me a hard time.
Oh, I
Give me a hard
I
time.
don't do that. And now we're going to be talking about this in the weeks to come, but we are all going to be shipmates on the Skeptoid Cruise coming up in July. Or is it June? When is it? July.
July.
Yeah.
Can't wait. But will we ever come back?
That's the question. Bermuda Triangle? I'm not sure.
The answer is yes, most definitely, yes, we will.
Yes, we will. I think
And we're
we
all
probably
giving
will.
talks.
We are all giving talks on this cruise, so
Yes.
this is by way of whetting people's appetites. Soon we're going to be playing another round of golf with Brian Dunning and other people on the cruise, and we can tell everybody more details. But for now, we're all very excited and looking forward to it very much as I just take my shot.
That's an interesting shortcut.
I didn't know you could do
love
that.
I love that.
Definitely. Cheating.
Oh, you're clever, Richard. Don't
Richard
you dare
just showed us
put that in
something
the
new
recording.
on Sweetopia hole number 6.
Look
what?
at that.
Oh, that's crazy.
I discovered a shortcut. They all say I use cheat codes. Brian Dunning says I use cheat codes. Oh, there's a nice shot.
Yes.
I use cheat codes.
Well, to be fair, Richard, you've told us you use cheat codes.
I do. And even though I don't know what they are.
Well, nice putt.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and we'll be having endless fun on the Skeptoid Cruise. Look, folks, go to skeptoid.com, check it out. They tell me there are still some cabins left, but not many. And you'll get to hang out with lots of skeptical skeptics. Oh, nice shot.
Oh,
Best
great
kind?
shot. Oh,
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
And with
That was a little shortcut I've never seen before either.
And with that, we'll continue playing our skeptical mini golf. And thank you all.
Bye. Bye.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dunning from Skeptoid here. I want to extend a special invitation to all of you. In mid-2025, Skeptoid will be celebrating our 1000th podcast episode. So we're throwing a big party by taking 60 of you to the Bermuda Triangle. It's July 7th through the 11th, departing and returning at Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We're having our own Skeptic Conference in our private conference facility aboard ship, plus more Skeptoid events ashore at stops on Bimini and Key West. Come and celebrate 1,000 episodes of Skeptoid with me and a boatload of special guests in the Bermuda Triangle. You can learn all about it and punch your ticket now at skeptoid.com/events. That's skeptoid.com/events. Reserve your spot now and hope you make it back.
Hello, everyone. This is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. And I'm here to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 215. Don't forget you can sign up to this newsletter at skeptics.com.au and get the full report, complete with all the links every other week, right into your inbox. But let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. Belle Gibson, the influencer, gained notoriety in the mid-2010s by claiming herbal products, or herbal products, and alt-med treatments had cured or ameliorated her brain cancer, which she never had. And she's back in the news thanks to a Netflix miniseries titled Apple Cider Vinegar, which describes itself as, quote, a truish story based on a lie, end quote. Gibson accrued hundreds of thousands of dollars thanks to a book deal, media appearances, and calls for direct financial support. She also falsely claimed part of her gains would be given to charities. She was found guilty after a much-delayed trial, though it is uncertain if she has ever repaid the fines that were imposed. In the meantime, she caused damage to a lot of people, whether financially, medically, or simply by raising false hope. What's changed? Who knows how many phony hard luck stories there currently are, but the financial, medical, and hope-damaged tales remain, which makes the new Netflix show as much a cautionary tale as an historical one. Oh, and I love how it's an historical. It's so Canadian, British, and Australian. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I will do just that. Pete Evans lobbied RFK Jr. for U.S. website using his paleo recipes. Evans has long been an ardent supporter of both Donald Trump and RFK Jr., the latter set to face a confirmation vote for his appointment to the Trump cabinet this week. And I just read he was confirmed. Evans is also the only person to have won the Skeptics Bent Spoon Award twice, the first time for his dangerous recipes. Richard Saunders wonders whether UFO fan Ross Coulthart might be in the running for another Bent Spoon Award at some stage. Neuro-linguistic programming coaching is on the rise with promises of big money. This story is more on the business practices of selling and on-selling training courses rather than the underlying and controversial methodology. So I guess they're selling a course on how to sell their courses. Nutrition advice is rife with misinformation. A medical education specialist explains how to tell valid health information from pseudoscience. How pseudosciences appear scientific. This is a paper by Swiss and German researchers using a mimicry account as a framework, and it looks at how the appearance of social media posts influences people's perception of the content of such posts as scientific. And I'm guessing they use such words as quantum and energy. The December issue of The Skeptic is out. It features a look at the not-so-normal mind. But what is normal? Exploding heads, memory issues, therapists, psychometrics, as well as a history of the Skeptics Challenge, a history of manifesting, dangerous treatments, and much more. And you can read the article on manifesting your wishes in the preview of the December 2024 issue, available on our website at www.skeptics.com.au. I just got mine in the mail, and it's the second week of February, so it's a good thing I have access to the digital version too. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. You can sign up for a hard copy or digital edition, or both. The digital is offered free to those who take up the hard copy version. New subscriptions start with the next issue, but you can also order a copy of the most recent one as a treat. Contact the editor if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing. Learn more about our magazine and subscribe now. Skeptics in Action. If you have any ideas for stories or want to contribute to Skeptics communications, such as the magazine or Facebook page, or just have something you want to get off your chest, then you're welcome to get in touch. News leads should be sent to newstips@skeptics.com.au. Submissions for the magazine and comments and suggestions, even rude ones, should go to editor@skeptics.com.au. Items of interest. Psychic on the unluckiest day in history. Ooh, I wonder when that is. The apparent unluckiest day in history is supposedly January 30th, and this article takes advantage of tragedy, terror, and bad luck, even though the Washington plane collision actually happened on the previous day. Influencer's strange disappearance in Indonesia forest. Oh, the lengths people will go to for fame and notoriety. A Malaysian social media personality's disappearance into an Indonesian forest after creating paranormal content turns out to have been a hoax. The crashing statue. More a bust, actually, but the video is cute. So what caused this crashing statue, you say? Was it a string? A loose plank? Was it a ghost? Or maybe a string? Oh dear. Silliest story of the week. Woohoo! Abductees' pants rejected. A Scottish museum has been slammed for not accepting a legendary alien abductee's pants. The museum initially, and strangely, said they, quote, already had similar material, end quote. Well, that's all for the newsletter this week. And a few weeks back, Tim Mendham sent me an email complaining that I was being pedantic about the Bermuda Triangle being a plane versus a 3D object, and he mentioned a cuboctahedron. And I had no idea how far this mention would go. And before I tell you a story, a cuboctahedron can be formed one of two ways. And this, of course, will be an overly simplified explanation, and if you want a more precise one, feel free to go to the Wikipedia page or watch videos on YouTube. What you do is you take a cube or a regular octahedron, and what I mean by regular is each side has the same measurements. And then you're going to cut off all the corners. If truncated correctly, see Wikipedia article. And we start with a cube. All the cut-off corners will be equilateral triangles, equilateral being all sides equal. The remaining shapes will be squares. Now, after mentioning the cuboctahedron on the Skeptic Zone a few episodes ago, I received an email from Calgary friend David Spencer. He sent me a paper which estimated the probabilities for rolling a cuboctahedral die. And that made me think it would be wonderful to have such a thing for the dice game. But I was unable to find one to purchase, so I found someone who would make me some 3D printed cuboctahedrons, and I could stick some numbers onto them. Once I received them, I posted a picture on Facebook, and discussions ensued underneath about Archimedean and Johnson solids, and about how the probabilities of getting a number on the cuboctahedral die would be different depending upon if the number was placed on a square or a triangle. I have to say, I love my Facebook friends. If you want to learn more about the probabilities of rolling a cuboctahedral die, you'll have to wait until the next time Kat and I play a dice game, or you can try and figure it out yourself. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill.
Hello, this is Rob Palmer. You may have heard of me. Lately, I've been interviewing scientists, skeptics, and other critical thinkers from around the world for my column in the Skeptical Inquirer, and recently, some for the Skeptic Zone. My written interviews have included Jay Novella from The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, mass psychogenic illness expert Robert Bartholomew, Celestial Ward from Squaring the Strange, psychic-busting Private Eye Bob Nygaard, skeptical activist Michael Marshall of the UK, and even secular activists Bailey Harris and John Delancey, that's Q from Star Trek. I even interviewed, believe it or not, a magic dragon, and another really well-known skeptic, Richard Saunders. You can find my online column with these interviews and more by Googling The Well-Known Skeptic plus Skeptical Inquirer. Also, follow me on Facebook at The Well-Known Skeptic. Cheers!
Now it's time once again to go back to the archives at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au to find out what was written in Australia's published past. All sorts of things you can discover or rediscover about what was written, what was thought about in the decades and centuries gone by. And this week I thought I'd look up references, vague, sort of tenuous maybe, references to politics and psychics. Now, of course, every year around the world when there are elections, you'll find psychics making predictions for one candidate or another, or one party or another, or one sort of outcome, or whatever the case may be. So I was looking vaguely for that sort of thing in the records of Australian published history, and I have found a few examples. Why don't we start in the year 1995 on the 22nd of March in the pages of the Canberra Times. Psychic tip for by-election by Emma MacDonald. Independent Joanne Clark is not plagued by worries in the lead up to Canberra's by-election. She knows, and knows is in quotations, she is going to win. The psychic who, quote, also happens to be, end quote, an Aborigine, businesswoman, marriage celebrant, therapist, psychotherapist, and former member of the Australian Labor Party, has a long-standing intuition she would end up in politics. In a more recent meditation, Joanne was told the by-election was the way to go. After finding out Ros Kelly's seat was up for grabs, Joanne received so much psychic confirmation that she is now confident the seat is hers. Although her own style of spiritual election calling may seem unorthodox, Ms. Clark has at least 2,000 likely supporters, the clients of her Prophet Bookshop and Holistic Health Centre in Manuka. I can't begin to tell you the people who have been in this room, she said, referring to some notable clientele. She has also distributed 30,000 flyers around the city. Obviously, some people are very patronising. They tell me I'm brave, Ms. Clark said. But I really am quite calm about the whole campaign. I feel I can sit back and enjoy the journey without getting attached to the outcome. She is also confident her own spiritual creativity will benefit Parliament. Creativity can be applied to dry politics. We just need to start doing some right brain activity and not always use the left side of our brain. Ms. Clark's election platform includes Australia becoming a republic, legal same-sex marriages, legal euthanasia, recognition of alternative and preventative medicine, voluntary voting, legal abortions, self-development courses for the long-term unemployed, and protecting the environment. And we have a picture of Joanne Clark here, seated behind what appears to be a crystal ball inside a pyramid. Now let's turn to the results of that very election held in 1995, held on the 25th of March. The winner was the Liberal Party by candidate Brendan Smythe with 39,021 votes, followed by Labour, followed by the Greens, followed by Against Further Immigration Party, and then down the list we have Independent Joanne Clark, who received 2,274 votes. So I'm afraid that this time her psychic insights let her down somewhat. But let's go back many years now to the year 1940. And sort of to do with politics, I'd guess you'd have to say. And this is in a newspaper called the Manning River Times, an advocate for the Northern Coast districts of New South Wales. That's quite a title of a newspaper. And this was published on Wednesday the 15th of May in 1940. 1940 will see the end of Hitler. It's not too often we talk about Adolf Hitler on this show, although we have done in sometimes past, I think, talking about predictions. Astrologer's prediction. This year, 1940, sees the end of Adolf Hitler. His own people will turn against him, but after the setbacks, he will try to win back his power. Nevertheless, the curtain will ring down on him, not in a blaze of glory, but in a shadow of defeat, and the greatest defeat the world will ever know, a moral defeat. There will be tremendous changes with regards to Britain's outlook and action in September. Among other things, a new person will become the Prime Minister of Great Britain. This is not because there will be anything against Mr. Chamberlain or his age, but it will arise from England's necessity for a hard-boiled fighting leader. Franklin Roosevelt will be re-elected president in November, and the year will see the entry of the United States into the European War. Hostilities will continue between China and Japan. Prediction by Madam Helen Piper, the well-known psychic astrologer from Shanghai. And indeed, Churchill became Prime Minister shortly after this was published, so he didn't have to wait until September. And regretfully, of course, as history records all too well, Adolf Hitler did not meet his downfall in 1940. And finally, back to the Canberra Times once again, this time published on the 27th of December 1993. 1994 looms, and we have got some predictions for you. And this is in a column called Capital Letter by Ian Warden. The new year looms, what awaits us? Here are some predictions for 1994 made with psychic insights from a contributor to the Skeptic magazine. Quote, Paul Keating resigns and sets up a New Age counselling service, ... Someone invents a new motor fuel which is distilled from Patterson's curse, and that's a invasive plant. Patterson's curse, and cars using the new fuel are identified by swarms of bees around the exhaust pipe. Bronwyn Bishop enters a nunnery. Bronwyn Bishop was a politician of the time. Juan Antonio Samaranch says he was joking, and the real host for the 2000 Olympics is Ulan Battler. End quote. These predictions are made by Sir Jim R. Wallaby. Now I'll break in here quickly and say Sir Jim R. Wallaby was a nom de plume of the late editor of the Skeptic magazine and the former president Barry Williams. He goes out on a limb to make the point that people who claim that they are psychic always stay close to the trunk when they are making predictions and predict things that are so likely to happen anyway that their prediction does not require any psychic assistance. They will predict, for example, that the Melbourne Cup will be won by a horse, but will never predict the improbable, even though when we take stock at the end of the year, we can find that oddities of improbable things have happened without the psychics foreseeing them. Needless to say, that was the conclusion of the recent Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project as well. Hence, another contributor to The Skeptic, Ian Plimer, makes his own annual set of 20 predictions for 1994 as to be able to compare his success rate as a soothsayer, saying psychically unassisted sooths, with the success of those who claim that their predictions are psychically inspired. Plimer predicts, for example, that there will be floods in India, that there will be a drought in Chad, but United States President Bill Clinton will suffer a decline in popularity, and that there will be a political scandal in Italy. So there we are, a brief Trove segment this week, looking at some of the cross-references to politics and psychics. You too can find out all sorts of things about psychics and politics and, well, whatever your heart's desire by going to Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because when you go there and you put in your search, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast this week. Thank you, as ever, to those people who contribute to the show, the sponsors of the show, the people who mean the show keeps going. And you can become one of those easily at PayPal or Patreon via PayPal or Patreon. Just go to skepticzone.tv and follow the links. And even if it's just over $1 a week, which is nothing these days, it means a lot to the Skeptic Zone, and because the Australian dollar is not doing too well, it's down about 63 cents, I think. Those people in the USA who contribute, your dollar goes a lot further. So if you contribute, say, only $5 a month, that reaches about $8 a month in Australia, and so on. So I encourage you to do that. Your dollar does go further. Now, a little bit of news about Henrietta the Skeptic Zone cat. We have Henrietta and Maud, and they both turned 9 years old the other week. But Henrietta had a little bit of she's had a bit of a bad time lately. It looks like she has a bit of heart disease and a clot apparently dislodged or something like that. The specialist is still trying to decide. And paralyzed her back legs a little bit and her tail, and off to the vet, then off to the specialist vet hospital at Sydney University, where she is still recovering. She's had a very rough week. Her kidneys were on the verge of not working anymore, but I got a call from the vet saying they couldn't believe that her kidneys came back so well. You know, Henny is really hanging in there, and then she had to have a special feeding tube. But the latest report is she's improving. Henrietta, the Skeptic Zone cat, is improving. And I know, the people out there, I know if you have a cat, a special cat or some cats, you know how special they are. You know how wonderful they are to have around. Henrietta would, and hopefully still will when she comes home, would sit behind my head at 5 o'clock every afternoon to batter me with her tail because she wanted her dinner. And she'd often come in here in the studio with her sister and start going meow, meow, meow. So let's all spare a thought for Henrietta, the Skeptic Zone cat, still in the specialist vet hospital, but the reports are positive. So let's hope she can come back soon. And I've noticed my talk on the main stage from PsyCon, which I think we held that in, when was it? October. I think it was October last year. I gave a talk about psychic detectives. That's now on YouTube, and I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to have a look at my talk about psychic detectives and false trails, I called it. And just before I go, as I often do, a shout out to my teacher friends who do such a wonderful job. And sometimes they have to do things like turn up at swimming carnivals and shelter from the sun. It's not an easy job being a teacher, but we need them desperately. Now, coming up on future episodes, I think we'll probably cover the story, which is making news now because of the Netflix series. Is it Netflix? Something like that. Apple cider vinegar. And this is about the wellness influencer Belle Gibson, who faked her own diseases and other people. That's making a lot of news at the moment. I might have a chat to Susan Gerbeck, because I noticed that the various websites, or should I say the various wiki pages of these people, are getting a lot of hits lately. But for this week, unless there could be an Easter egg after the music, you never know, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
If you're happy and you know it, say meow. If you're happy and you know it, say meow.
If you're happy and you know it, say meow.
No, you've got to be more. If you're happy and you know it, say meow.
Thank you, Maud.
Seriously.
Have fun, don't worry. Won't be like the whole thing with the guy shaving at the pyramid, and won't be like that scene in Flash Gordon where all the sharp things are. Nope, none of that'll happen. Have fun. Bye. See you later. Gotta go. There's no business like show business. Can I have a drink? But you're right. It wasn't at all like that Flash Gordon movie. Very disappointing. I thought is that still on? Sorry.
Hey, Kat.
Hey, Adrienne, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
I hear you got a fancy new toy.
I do. I have a fancy new toy.
Tell me all about it.
It's something called a cuboctahedron. Do you have any idea what that is?
Only because you told me what it was.
It's very saucy, like the isosahedron.
And like a dodecahedron, only better.
Exactly.
It's a really funky looking cube triangle, a weird oddity. I don't even know how many sides are on it.
There are
a whole bunch of sides.
I think it's 8 sides, 8 triangles, and 6. There's 14 sides, I'm pretty sure. I just went blank. Isn't that funny? Just like totally blank.
Cube octahedron. You'd think it would be 4 and 8 based on the name. No, cube is 6.
Yeah, so it's 6 and 8. So it is 6
14.
and 8. Yeah.
Yeah, look at us doing math in our heads.
There are 8 triangular faces and 6 square faces, just like the cube and the octahedron. That's why it's called a cuboctahedron. What's interesting, I think, is my friend David Spencer sent me a paper about the probabilities of this die. And, you know, you're looking at it through the camera, so it's not that obvious maybe, but I think you can see that the square sides look a lot bigger than the triangle sides.
They do. They look twice as big.
They do, don't they? They look a lot bigger. However, you know, if you're looking at probabilities, like if you're rolling a 6-sided die, the probability of rolling a 5 for Susan Gerbeck would be 1 in 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you would think that because there are 8 triangular faces versus 6 square faces, it might be a higher probability to roll the triangle.
But because the squares are bigger, I'm guessing that kind of evens things out?
It more than evens things out.
Ooh.
What this paper did, and basically they said it's very difficult to come up with a probability for some of these odd shapes of die. It was published in the
National Enquirer.
Yeah, the National Enquirer. No, SIAM Publications Library, which is the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics.
I've actually heard of that.
There you go.
It's totally legit, like.
I know. I'm just going to read this little bit because I think it's kind of funny. A series of 100 experiments with a cardboard cuboctahedron suggested that the probability of landing on a square was 0.8 or close to 0.8. So I thought it was really cute that they used a cardboard cuboctahedron and just rolled it 100 times, which is, if I remember correctly from my stats classes many, many, many years ago, 100 is sort of that threshold number for experimental probabilities.
I want to know which origami master, maybe Richard Saunders, had to fold up a cardboard cuboctahedron.
It would be quite something.
Yeah. To me, I would just have a lot of duct tape on that, which would ruin the experiment because that's a whole other variable you have to take into account.
And to get it precise, I'm sure they use some precise tools to do it. When was this published? I have to see when this was published. It was published in 1994. I'm wondering if anybody has replicated the experiment, but now with a 3D printed cuboctahedron like I have.
Did you Google a thing?
I didn't.
Are we ever going to roll this thing, or are we just going to do a whole segment on cuboctahedrons and walk away without a dice game?
I put on the triangles, because remember there's 8 triangles, the numbers 1 through 8. And then on the squares, the numbers 9 through 14. Think about what we talked about with probability, more likely to land on the square, so 9 through 14, versus the triangles. So the Susan Gerbic number is actually on a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, that's the probability of landing just on a triangle or a square, not the probability of getting a particular number.
Exactly.
And we're not going to get into that math. We need a whole other show for that.
My head already hurts from this much math.
I'm really excited about this. I don't know why. This is just so fun. And thank you, David Spencer, for the idea. And thank you, Tim Mendham, because that's where this whole idea started. It's all his fault.
I blame you, Tim, for this stress headache that I've now, acquired, having to do math.
What's your first number?
I'm going to pick the lucky 13.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to pick the Susan Gerbic number. You are psychic.
Woohoo!
It was 13.
Yes. Cool beans. Well, What's your guess? What's your prediction?
I'm going to go with 9, which is on a square.
I'm going with 2.
2, which is on a triangle. 10. Nobody's psychic this time. Psychic Penny failed. All right.
So did Agent Zorak.
Next roll.
Let's go with 14 because it's Valentine's Day today.
I like that a lot. And I'm going to go with number 1. Why not? You won't believe it.
Number 1?
Nope. 5. Susan Gerbic.
For Susan Gerbic.
There you go, Susan. And for the supplementary or bonus or whatever you want to call it.
7.
I'm going to predict that we're going to get the palindromic number 11.
Ooh. So we're both going with squares.
No, you're a triangle. You said 7, right?
Oh, yeah. And we're 7-11.
You were close. It's a 6. Isn't that interesting? So we got a 13, a 10, a 5, and a 6. 2 triangles and 2 squares. The triangles beat the odds. Thanks, Kat.
Thanks, Adrienne. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing with your new toy.
And happy Galentine's Day.
Happy Galentine's Day to you, too.